Back, Jeff Bagwell comes to minor league camp. Pedro Leon, Hunter Brown, Alex Santos are laser focused. Plus, baseball in the juice box, 20,000 plus fans, LSU versus the Longhorns, a local product goes deep, a walk-off home run, kids throwing 103 miles an hour on the mound. It's been an exciting weekend, and rule changes in 2023. The Players Union and MLB have agreed on 3 major rule changes. You'll have to stay tuned and listen to this edition of Locked On Astros. We're your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Astros, your daily Astros podcast. Here are your hosts, Eric the Man Heisman and Brett H-Town Wheelhouse Chansey.
We are Locked On Houston Astros, and we hope that you join us for a daily Locked On Astros podcast. My name is Eric Heisman. You can find me on Twitter at Eric Talks Astros. You can find the show at Locked On Astros, your team every day. Brett, where can you find you at?
They can find me at H-Town Wheelhouse on Twitter and Instagram, and at Stros411 on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Always positive, always Stros.
Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has you covered this season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before. BetOnline, it's where the game starts. So I know that we had some games going on this weekend. I know Maid Park, there a lot of people were going there. It seemed like big crowds. We're going to talk about that a little bit later. But the big thing that's kind of going around in Astros world, I know that the major league players can't play ball right now. They're all sitting home playing. I mean, I know some of them are actually practicing, but the minor league players have actually reported to camp. And Jeff Bagwell, of all people, was working with Pedro Leon. I saw him kind of working on Pedro Leon's batting stance and everything like that. So that was awesome to see. And it's good to see that some of these younger players are getting a lot of attention from some of the manager like Dusty Baker, some of the upper level coaches, because these guys will be normally working with some of the big leagues guys. So what have you heard so far?
Yeah, so, in camp, it was great to see Jeff Bagwell hanging around. You could see him as Pedro Leon is in the cage talking to him. You see Bagwell kind of getting a stance and lifting his leg and showing him how to take a step and maybe working on his stride. And it was funny. I was like, wait, Jeff Bagwell's working on his stride. Is he going to teach him that real almost split-legged stance that he had? No. He was teaching him fundamental batting. And that's what we forget about guys like Bagwell. Even though a pro may have a certain type of swing, they know the fundamentals. They're smart. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, Eric, and it's always valuable. And that's the thing I love about this club is day in and day out, you have veterans and former players that always come back, and Bijou and Bagwell have been mainstays with this club. Even Roger Clemens still comes around and hangs out from time to time. But the 3 players that really got a lot of publicity, that guys like Brian McTaggart, Chandler Roman, them were there taking pictures, kind of jealous of those guys getting to cover that right now, is, Alex Santos, Hunter Brown, and Pedro Leon. Let's talk about Alex Santos here.
Hey,
Alex,
before we do that,
go
let's
ahead.
talk about what Pedro Leon said about Bagwell.
Okay, yeah,
he said
definitely.
Bagwell came in and worked with him a little. He said last year he didn't have the results he wanted. It was an adjustment with him playing more games than ever. He said he learned it was more about the mental side and staying strong, and you can be better at the plate. He said he has to let his athleticism play, and he is very confident with how he's going to do this year. So after a full season, he's never played this this much before. It was a big adjustment. So coming from the Cuban League, this was a big adjustment. And just think that they lost a whole 2020 season as well due to COVID. Pedro Leon also didn't get play. So I think this last year was a stepping stone for him. He realized that he needs to mean business this year. And now he gets to work with players like Jeff Bagwell. And so that means something.
No, yeah, and we even discussed that on last week's podcast when we had Phil Seelig from Cuba Dugout talked about how he basically missed 2 years of baseball.
Right.
And Pedro Leon, like you had mentioned in the quotes, it was he had played more baseball last year than he had played in a long time. This year, though, he said he expects to make those strides. He expects to do big things, and he also said he wasn't happy with last year's production. He feels like last year he really missed opportunities to make big strides and make impacts on the team more than he did. And so I thought that's really big of someone like Pedro Leon who has a lot hanging over him. Um, to move to a younger kid and a kid that's maybe a couple more years out than a Pedro Leon, Alex Santos. This kid, Eric, is one of the best pitchers to come out of New York in the last 20 years. He made a big jump last year. He's looking to make another one. I thought this was interesting. Brian McTaggart interviewed him, wrote an article on him, and he basically said, "Look, you're from New York. You grew up in the shadows of Yankee Stadium. All your family, I'm sure, is Yankee fans. What is it like now?" He said, "Well, most of my family members are Yankee fans, but since I got drafted by the Astros, they kind of just shifted over and became big Astros fans, except for my grandmother. My grandmother still loves the Yankees." And so I thought that was cool. But this kid is 6'4", Eric. Let me give you some vitals on him. He's the number 8 ranked prospect in the MLB pipeline for the Astros. And last year, he threw 41 and 2/3 innings in low A Fayetteville, a 3.46 ERA and 48 strikeouts. What do we know about his fastball and how hard he throws?
I'm not sure, but this kid is not even old enough to buy Belching Beaver. Go back in time with Belching Beaver sponsored us, but yeah, this kid is he throws 96 miles per hour, and he sat more around 90 and 91 later in the season. But he has a good carry on his 4-seamer and good sink on his 2-seamer. But basically, it sounds like he's a fireballer. I'm sure he's gonna, as he moves up the system, he's can kind of work in some breaking pitches as well.
Yeah.
That's what the Astros like to do. They like to develop pitchers kind of like the Lance McCullers and the Colin McHughes, those that rely not just on the fastballs, but also the breaking pitches as well.
Yeah, he did say that. He said that Eric Neeson did mention that he's making strides. The Astros look for him to throw more innings than ever. They're going to push him. And I watched a little interview, and he did say that he really wants to continue to work on on his slider, on basically his breaking pitches, hitting the zone more, throwing them harder. And I mean, he's got an array of pitches. This kid's got an arsenal. He's got all the tools. And he said last year, and this is to tell you how young he is. He goes, "I never threw that much in high school than I did last year." And so, I mean, this kid, that's what we got to realize. This kid's really, really young, like you said, 20 years old. And so he's got a bright future ahead of him. And Hunter Brown, Eric, I mean, this guy, we have talked about him almost all last season. When he came on the scene in Sugarland last year, he has got this Verlander-esque motion. If you watch his kick, you watch when he throws, you watch the way he swings his back leg over, he looks exactly like a young Justin Verlander. And he said in his interview that he's basically looking at working on his slider. He said last year his slider was something to be basically he wanted to put more value in it, but he couldn't find the zone. So he's working on high velocity. He's working on spin rate. He's working on other pitches. He's got a traditional down 12-6 curveball. But he mentioned I can't say his name. Perpas, hey, help me out. Mike.
Perpisky?
Yeah, Perpisky.
I do not say blah, 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 blah.
Okay, we will edit that out of the
No,
audio.
it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
a podcast.
Well, yeah. So Mike Krapinski or Pappy and Corey Lee, he said
Papirski,
those
I
two
think it is.
guys, yeah, those two guys help him be more comfortable. He said Story's been working with him. So he's got a lot of guys in his corner. And we know that some of the guys that we've interviewed that have played with Hunter Brown, Endersby, and all those guys have a lot of great things to say about his stuff. It's exciting to see what the Astros have coming up through the minor leagues. And it's good that they're able to get out there on the mound and start throwing.
Right. So while we're talking about the minor league players, I do want to address something that came up this weekend. Is that the fact that some of these players that were, I know we're going to talk about it a little bit later, but protected from a Rule 5 draft. We'll talk about that Rule 5 draft in a little bit. But some of these players who were added to the Rule 5 draft and added to the 40-man roster, they're like, yes, this is awesome. We're added to the 40-man roster. But now they can't participate in their spring training camp while they're now locked out. So players like Jeremy Pena and Joe Perez, Sean Dubin, among others. So it kind of sucks. I mean, they were added, but now they're sucking so a little bit. So you want to talk a little bit about the catching situation, and we can talk about that in a second. But you know what? I want to talk a little bit about Bet Online. Like, when is this lockout going to end? I wonder if Bet Online has some odds for that.
Well, here's the thing. Football might be over for the season, but basketball's in full swing, and pro and college hoops to the latest odds, player performances, props to where the next fired head coach will land, and when will the lockout end. BetOnline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. It's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC odds, right to the Olympic coverage and information. Head to the website today and use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. Bet online, where the game starts.
Thank you for making the Locked On Astros podcast your first listen. Why don't you make the Locked On MLB Prospects your second listen? Host Lindsey Crosby is a prospect encyclopedia. He's going deep on all the MLB stars of tomorrow. I know we're talking about the stars of tomorrow, and why don't you listen to Across Baseball Stars of Tomorrow? It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. So you want to talk a little bit about the catching situation in the farm system. I know we have Corey Lee, but we have Yainer Diaz. I can never say the name, but he is another guy that the Astros are really high on. And we got the Rule 5 draft that was supposed to happen before this whole lockout happened. But there are whispers that why even have the Rule 5 draft anymore? If you have this lockout and players have already reported to camp, what is it fair for you even have this Rule 5 draft? Because they're already reporting to camp, they're already participating in drills, and why even do this? It's already going to be mass chaos. It's going to be glorious once this lockout is over. You're going to have a rush for free agents. You're going to have teams being completed. It's going to be so crazy. So it's going to be mass chaos. And you know who's going to love it?
Who?
All the podcasters out there, because
That's right.
It's going to be like
It's going to be open season. It will.
It's going to be Christmas in March, basically.
Well, here's the deal. Dorothy says the lockout will end tomorrow. And if you're listening to this Monday, she's saying Monday. Now, we're holding her to it. So if it doesn't end on Monday, Dorothy, we're coming to you and telling you got it, because Mr. Corona comes in and says cap. He's like, that is straight up lie. That is not even true. We wish the lockout would end. But here's the thing that this Rule 5 draft stopping has also done is that they MLB basically, since they're basically talking about canceling it for this year, there's only 5 teams that are allowing scouts to allow other team scouts to come to their field to scout their players. All the other teams have said, no, we're not going to do that. So, this lockout, Eric, affects scouts. This lockout, we haven't even talked about this. MLBPA issued a $1 million fund for workers that are affected by the lockout. In other words, your concession stand workers, your people that sell programs, your people that work in the team stores, your ticket takers, your security guards, all these guys and girls and all these men and women, young and old, that are working for these clubs are basically out of a job. If that's your job and that's one of your main jobs, then you're not getting paid right now. And so they started that fund. And so this lockout has far-reaching implications beyond owners and players, and the players are aware of it. And I think that's why MLBPA was very proactive in this. And I thought that was a good move on their part.
Yeah. So I know that scouts have not even been allowed to some camps to look at these players. So, I mean, you would think that it would be open season, but it's not the same. So
once AAA games start, this is a note. those are open to the public. They can't tell the scouts they can't go to those games. They can just show
They
up
have
if
to
they
buy a
want to,
ticket.
or they'll go in the press box with us because I'll be in the, hey, we will be. I don't know about you, Eric. We haven't talked about it, but I plan on being at the home opener for the Space Cowboys. There in the press box watching them kick off the season. It's going to be a fun time.
Yeah. So there's so much information. So this is according to Ken Rosenthal. There so much information available right now that maybe in March or maybe in November, these guys would have been maybe under the radar. But now at spring training, that these guys will be more in the radar because they'll be at camp. People can see them actually in action. So that's something that the owners are a little bit concerned about. Hey, in November, these guys are just names, but now these guys are in camp. And
And
go ahead.
maybe they send beat writers. Maybe Brian McTaggart and Chandler Rome are sent as like spies to other camps as reporters, and teams are like, hey, we can't go to their camp, but we sure can send reporters there.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Have like some secret scouting going on. That'd be awesome. A little espionage.
Right. Also, the Rule 5 draft, they have to stay on the team for the entire season. Now,
Exactly.
if you have a shortened spring training, that's kind of giving them a less advantage of sticking with that new team because they're not going to have enough time to get ready to stick with that new team. So that's kind of giving them that. So um, then scouts can't enter the facilities, like we just talked about
Yeah.
that, and then you also have 200 major league free agents who are still unsigned. And that's
And
the big thing.
yeah, that is huge. Eric, I think, and this is what I'm seeing, a lot of talking heads in baseball are saying the ones that will be most effective are the veteran free agents. They are not going to get the payouts. And I've been saying that before it was reported that they're not going to get the payouts that they normally would. This is going to affect the value of their contracts. I think this spells a formula for Carlos Correa to be more likely to be in Houston than ever before because of this, because the big payout won't be there. The Astros maybe can get him on a 6-year deal, maybe get him on a super 2-year deal where they pay him a handsome sum for the next 2 years. I'm just saying it's
I
more
think that's what they
likely.
wanted to do in the first place. They've been wanting to do that. I think they said, look, we'll pay you this amount for 2 years, but we can't do this amount. But I just don't think the injury that Carlos Correa is very injury prone. He's not looking for a short term deal because
But
he
that's what
wants.
I well no, he's not. But what I'm saying is what these like Ken Rosenthal, all these guys are saying that are in these rooms that basically have flies on the wall, have sources, are saying that the market is going to tank in area of value, not totally bottom line, but it's going to lower what clubs are willing to go out. If it wasn't a lockout shortened season or lockout delayed start season, then the values would have stayed the same. Carlos would have made a massive deal, made a lot of money, but this hurts his value. And the ones it hurts are the veterans, not the young players. That's an unfortunate consequence of them fighting for players down the road.
Yeah. So if they really wanted to do this Rule 5 draft, they should have done it before they did the lockout because at this point, it would be unfair for all sides.
Well,
And
it's usually done in December, right? I mean, it was supposed to be done December 14th. It's usually
oh, yeah,
done
yeah, yeah.
around the winter
December.
meetings.
I think I said November.
Yeah,
November is
yeah,
when they have to protect the players, but
and then
December,
December like 14th
during
or
the winter
15th.
meetings. Yeah.
Yeah,
But they
and
did a
that didn't
lockout
happen.
in the second of December, and I think the winter meetings were supposed to be the next week, and so they locked them out before the winter draft. Winter meetings was supposed to happen. So, but players who are going to be hurt the most is Jeremy Pena. A lot of people expect him to be the everyday shortstop that for the Houston Astros to start the season.
Yeah,
He would be great right now to be getting some reps at shortstop right now. Unfortunately, because he was added to the 40-man roster to protect him from being drafted in a Rule 5 draft, Now he can't get those reps at shortstop, and he's sitting at home. Hopefully not just playing video games, but he's doing. He's keeping up. But Joe Perez, Sean Dubin, all those guys that were added at the end, they're kind of stuck in no man's land. At the time they were celebrating, but now they're kind of just sitting there waiting like everything else. But you know what? Who's also waiting? All
Who's
these
that?
players who played at Minute Maid Park this weekend with the the Shriners College Classic, and
That's
there's some
right.
epic crowds. You know what that screams? And I know we had a comment about the when's the lockout can end. We'll talk about that in a second. But people in Houston, they want baseball back. And we're going to talk about that in a second because I think we all want baseball back. It's like having that Built Bar that just makes your mouth want more. So tell us about Built Bar.
Yeah, so Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar in the land. It is wrapped in 100% chocolate. They don't just have Built Bars, they have Built Puffs. I actually had one today. They have this mint Built Puff that it basically tastes like the Andes mints. It's marshmallow. It's wrapped in 100% chocolate. The marshmallow is infused with protein, 19 grams of protein, about 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 grams of net carbs. Amazing, packed with flavor, and it doesn't fill you too much. It gives you just enough and gives you the right things you need so you're not breaking open that diet. So you're staying a true disciplined man or woman because you're hitting the gym, you're hitting the weights, you're playing basketball, you're doing what you can to stay in shape. So you have flavors out there for Built Bar. You have coconut almond, mint brownie. You have white chocolate cookies and cream. For the Built Puff, you have churro, you have coconut marshmallow, banana cream pie, and so much more. Built Bar is the best tasting protein bar in the land. And if I could take this camera right now, I know those of y'all listening, it wouldn't help, but I could show you my fridge, my pantry. We got boxes and boxes of Built Bars. Why? Because we consume them. They don't go to waste. They go right into the belly. That's right. So go right now to built.com and use the promo code LOCKS15. That's LOCKS15 for 15% off your order. If you go to built.com and use that promo code LOCKS15, you get 15% off at built.com.
All right. Speaking of things you need parts for your automobile. Go to rockauto.com. So tell us about that.
So, and here's the thing, and if your car's not working, you can't drive to the auto parts store. So why not go to your computer? Why go to the local chain and deal with these guys anyways? They're going to upcharge you because you're not a mechanic. They're going to look in their warehouse. They got one or two options, but rockauto.com has all the parts you'll ever need. It's this easy to use website. I've used it myself. It's family owned for over 20 years, and they're here for you. The prices are reliably low. Why spend 30, 50, sometimes 100% more for the same parts when you can get them delivered right to your doorstep? You don't have to leave your garage. The delivery is fast, it's quick, it's easy. You can get that part, change it right there in your driveway, and you're on the road. You can go down to Minute Maid Park. You can go to Constellation Field. Heck, you can drive to Corpus once they start. It doesn't matter because rockauto.com has you covered. Whether it's brake pads, whether it's tail lamps, it doesn't matter what your need is. They've got it at rockauto.com. So this is what I need you to do, the listener. I need you to go to rockauto.com right now. And when you see all the parts they have and you check out, when you get your parts for your car or truck, right, Locked On in the Where Did You Hear About Us box, and let them know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need at rockauto.com. Now, Eric, before we get into the talk about Minute Maid, do we want to hit on the 3 rule changes, or do we want to hit that on the tail end after we talk about Minute Maid Park going crazy?
We can talk about that and the 3 rule changes, but I want to read a tweet from Carl Ravish from ESPN. This
Okay.
was at 7:42 p.m. Central Time.
All right.
He says, it's becoming increasingly apparent that we may not have a major league season in 2022. Both sides believe they have made significant concessions to the other. Each side points at the other as having not done nearly enough. As has been reported, the word of the day is deadlock.
Wow. See, and okay, so I'm going to share this to maybe give some optimism to counter that pessimistic tweet that you just read. Oh my gosh, deadlock. I hate that word. But listen to this. Today, the owners in MLB PA, reported by John Heyman, agreed that the pitch clock, they would get a pitch clock in 2023. They would ban the shift in 2023, which, as much as I hate the shift, I'm not for banning it. I think they should limit it. and they want larger bases. And if you've seen, there is a tweet someone put where Ricky Henderson stole the record base where he's holding up a base. He's holding up a base that's like a big piece of plywood size base, talking, making fun of the larger bases. But here's the thing, and let me put a warning out there to owners and to players. I hear players all the time telling us as fans that y'all miss us. And I wholeheartedly believe it when guys like Lance McCullers, when guys like Jose Altuve, when Aaron Judge, when all these guys say this, Mike Trout, I believe them, okay? But as a fan, if I'm taking my commentator hat off, as a fan, I don't believe it. And let me tell you why I don't believe it. Because I've never seen or never heard of two people tanking talks the way I heard over the weekend Max Scherzer and Boris tank those talks. And that's multiple reports across multiple media groups saying that these two guys, Mad Max and Scott Boris, were the ones who sank the talks at the end. And that's why they said the tone changed. So either y'all are both lying to us, or because y'all can't both be telling the truth, or one is telling the truth and one is lying. If there is not a season, if the season gets canceled, if there's a strike, you will lose fans.
Yes.
People will not return. Season ticket holders will give up their season tickets. They will walk away from the game. You will lose. You are killing the heart and the soul of baseball. So H-Town Wheelhouse, the most dedicated, the most die-in-the-wool baseball fan that there is out there. I promise you, there's none other that has a matched love for the game than I do. It is pissing me off, and I'm sick and tired of the line, quit using it. It's not about millionaires and billionaires. Yes, it is. When the minimum salary is hundreds of thousands of dollars, it is. So don't tell me it's not about the money, because it's about the freaking money. It's about the money, I promise you. And we get that. We would want our highest earning potential no one begrudges you for fighting for what you feel like you deserve. But dang it, get in the room, lock yourself in that room, and don't come out until you have an agreement, because we're sick and tired of the BS lines, the BS sympathy, because we're not buying it. We're not buying it anymore. And until you put action to word, until you talk the talk and you walk the walk, we're not going to believe a damn word you say from this point on. Show me, prove it to me, make a believer out of me, because I'm sick of hearing it, and I don't believe it until it happens. I'm sorry. I'm just done with this bull crap. It's not millionaires and billionaires. Yes, it is. It is. And I'm sick and tired of hearing about it. Oof.
In other news, according to Ken Rosenthal, Major League Baseball is willing to increase the first competitive balance tax threshold from $220 million if the Players Association moves in other areas, people with knowledge of the league's thinking says. So I don't know what that means. I don't know if we'll ever see this happens. But you know what? Let's kind of move away from this, because obviously it's kind of agitating you. So let's go and talk about the people playing for free right now. And that's the people who played in the Shriners Classic this weekend. And there's a big crowds there. That means that people in Houston and the Texas area in general are looking for people for baseball. They're craving baseball. I don't know if baseball, I heard on the radio recently that is baseball really the national pastime anymore, or have other sports taken over?
Did you see the survey? I mean, I actually tweeted that out last week. There's a survey of Generation Z, or whatever they're calling now. They're like, just go through the alphabet. After Z, I guess it goes back to A. But Generation Z, they polled them, their favorite sports. Guess where baseball ranked?
Probably way low, because
okay, so I'll give you from 1 to 10. Where do you think it ranked?
I don't know, 7.
No, that's too low. It was 6. It was right behind beach volleyball at 5. So if Major League Baseball and beach volleyball is not even nearly as popular as it was when I was growing up in the 90s with Randy Stolkos, Sidget Smith, Karch Karai, Hovland, and Dodd, all those amazing
probably
sand volleyball
reason
combos.
For beach volleyball too.
Well, but I played volleyball in college and growing up. But what I'm saying is, no, I'm talking about AVP, men's, not just women, men's and women's volleyball. Okay. It was very popular in the late 80s, early 90s. It was at its apex. But beach volleyball, among younger generations is more popular than baseball. And
Because there's not constant action. In basketball, there's constant action. In football, there's constant action. In
I get it.
baseball, you're waiting for pitches. And
I get it. Oh no, I totally get that. And Eric, you know what baseball at the juice box? You know what college baseball told Major League Baseball?
what?
The fans, they said, you know what, Major League Baseball? We'll go to baseball games without you. We'll still watch baseball. Major League Baseball you need to realize this week, the fans don't need Major League Baseball because
Oh,
they've
the
got other
fans were
forums.
telling this was the fans saying F you to to Major League Baseball saying we don't need to watch your sport. We got
That's
college.
exactly. And let me tell you, you had number 7 LSU versus number 1 UT. 30,000 plus fans. 30,000. The night before, LSU's playing OU, bottom of the 10th. Okay. Bottom of the 10th, LSU gets up to bat and crushes a home run over the Crawford box fence. Um, it was hit by Jordan Thompson. And then you had Tennessee volunteer pitcher Joyce throwing 101 to 103. Um, and you had a local product from University of Texas, Trey Foutine, hitting a home run into the Crawford boxes. And I mean, they totally dominated the LSU Tigers, University of Texas, and they were undefeated going into today's game. Did the Longhorns stay undefeated? They actually got beat today. And if you're listening to Monday, they got beat Sunday 5-1 by UCLA. They're still the consensus number one. They're still going to be the number one ranked team when rankings come out Tuesday. But you had UT, you had Tennessee, you had Oklahoma, you had Baylor, you had LSU. I mean, this was a fun weekend of baseball, and everyone I saw posting pictures had an absolute blast. They miss baseball, and players, we love baseball. Astros, we love our team. We're dedicated to our team, but we are frustrated, and I think it's okay that we express that frustration.
Right. And I hope that there's a season. I want baseball. I mean, it's part of our daily lives. Like our girlfriends need to understand. Once baseball season starts, it's like okay, at 7:05 or 7:10, first pitch. That's our time where we get to watch the game. Then after the game, it's your time. Then we got to do a podcast, you and me, of course. But yeah, it's a special time. Baseball is a big part of our lives. I know not everybody's down with the baseball like it used to be, but it's still for the fans like us, it's a big deal, and it's something that we need, and it's something that's a big part of our life. So I just hope that the owners and the players are able to work this out. But it sounds like while they're coming to agreement on pitch clock and all this other
Uh,
stuff, they're far apart, and it seems like it's the threshold that's the big sticking point. The owners are sticking by the well. If we put the threshold up, you're going to have the rich get richer and the poor teams get poorer. And then I even heard that that what if the reason for the if you have too many playoff teams, which I believe that the players are okay with them having 14 teams now.
14 teams. Oh,
So
it's like I-9 sports.
the reason why the players did not want that in the first place was, well, anybody, even the teams that below 500 can get hot at the right time and make the playoffs. And so teams are going to realize that and be like, you know what? We don't have to trade for that free agent at the trade deadline. We don't
Mm.
have to hide that. We don't have to sign that big time free agent during off season. So I think both sides are they're trying to do what's best for themselves, and until they figure things out, I don't know if what's gonna happen. But hopefully they're able to figure things out. Hopefully we can get some more baseball going because yeah, we're all craving it. So Brett, you got anything else?
I just want to say that, since I'm always positive, always Stros, just know that anytime I express disdain or frustration, it's because I really feel like at times the players and the owners need to know and need to hear how we feel. I know some people are like, oh, but you interview players and you shouldn't really be out there with your opinions. Wrong. I have a valid opinion. You do too. If you have one to express to someone, let them know it's okay. We can all agree to disagree. And at the end of the day, I think a deal gets done. I think that tweet is more clickbait than actuality. I really doubt that we don't have a season. I think the players and the owners have too much to lose if there's no season versus a shortened season. I think we'll have at least 135 games this year. I don't think we'll have any more than that, but it will be a shortened season. I am positive that we will get something done. Mr. Corona, thanks for the video idea. I'll make a note of it, and we will definitely tackle that in the coming days. Also, in the coming weeks, in spite of what's going to be happening, we'll be getting with, other hosts, doing some crossovers, doing some division previews, things like that with other hosts in the network. So just stay tuned and stay tuned in to Locked On Astros, because we're still your team every day.
And don't forget to make the Locked On MLB podcast your third listen every day. Sully over at the Locked On MLB podcast, he's an encyclopedia of all baseball. He remembers every pitch in every game, and he'll say, I remember this pitch, Eric. And I'm like, how do you remember every pitch? But Sully over at the Locked On MLB podcast, he's a great listen to. And you can listen to Locked On Astros podcast. Go check them out as well, wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll be back with next Locked On Astros podcast. Go Stros, and let's figure this crap out, because we want baseball.